The Mind's Eye is late Season 4, and that timing is deliberate. For them, not for me. I've discussed just about everything there is to say about TNG Romulans back during Romulan summer. This right here is just Romulan pre-Thanksgiving. Geordi is heading to Risa for an AI conference, but Picard told him to leave a little early to take in some vacation, and I'm betting to see if he too can get involved in a time travel conspiracy, or if it was just him. Geordi seems to be on vacation already, the way he's kicked back in there chatting with the computer, and his tone. You know, if you play your cards right, Geordi, I think you've got a shot. Well, as I gave away, a Romulan ship shows up right in the middle of Geordi's little game with the computer, and before he can do anything useful, they beam him away. Romulans are very tetchy about people snubbing their homeworld, the true vacation capital of the galaxy, where absolutely no tourists return with a negative thing to say about the planet. After the titles, Picard announces there's a big hubbub among the locals on one of the Klingon planets near the Federation border. There's open rebellion there. So the Enterprise is delivering a special emissary from the High Council to look into it.
You're preparing to grant them independence.
Well, perhaps. Conquer them again later, if we wish.
If it's even worth the trouble, it's hardly worth exploiting some of those backward locals for their own good. The reason that the Enterprise is here is because the governor of the rebelling world claims that the Federation is aiding the rebels.
But I can assure you, Ambassador, that the Federation would never interfere in the internal affairs of the Empire.
Even if you were to have a full-fledged civil war, which of course could never happen. The ambassador invited the Enterprise since Picard is known and respected among the Klingon leadership, but he's less than happy with finding out that he's going to be dealing with Worf, whose name right now is synonymous with the crap that craps out. While we're on the subject of crap, that describes the day that Geordi is having, being dragged through a Romulan ship, strapped into a chair and bombarded with horrifying imagery. His vacation is almost worse than mine. The dude in charge is none other than the guy who plays Silic, whom we also had in a different role last month in Alice. He's really getting around, isn't he? The way the images are being thrown at Geordi utilizes the inputs for his visor, basically just shining pictures right on the inside of his skull where his brain can't look away, if I may be technical.
Once our work is done, the Forge will act normally, totally unaware of his conditioning. The perfect tool for our purpose.
Will there be any physical evidence of what you are going to do to him?
This is why the timing is deliberate. This is the first hint that we have that Tasha Yar's daughter exists and is working for the Romulans. The season finale where she is fully revealed to us would be just 2 episodes later. While the brainwashing gets underway, we cut back to the Enterprise as the tactical issue related to the rebellion is considered.
They might attack a freighter, but I doubt they would challenge a Federation starship.
Especially with the Federation furnishing them support.
Oh, it is on, old man! Worf figures the ambassador assumed that his discommendation means that he has no honor, and thus would have no problem betraying Picard's secret involvement in the rebellion. Although it does assume that Worf would betray Picard just 'cause, and not for any actual reason. Which is generally not what you expect from the dishonorable. Usually it's a quid pro quo thing. Which of course is Latin for a pound, if you please. The ambassador follows it up by saying that killing Duras actually made him a few friends, since there was a chance that that jackass could have become head of the Empire, but now he's disqualified on account of being dead. So, there's no chance that any other Duras is going to be a problem ever again. Meanwhile, Geordi's brainwashing is going right on schedule. They've created a reproduction of 10 Forward, complete with a Chief O'Brien. But Geordi struggles. Everyone likes Chief O'Brien. Shooting him is a lot harder than it would be if it was Duras. Even Spot would probably have phasered Duras if given a chance. But after some further manipulation, Geordi is willing to kill even Chief O'Brien.
Good, Mr. LaForge. Very good. Why don't you enjoy a drink with your friends?
Mind if I join you guys?
Sure. Just kick the body out of the way. We're pretty laid back on the late shift. Well, his Manchurian candidate's summer camp is soon over, and he returns to the Enterprise with seemingly no memory of his experience. He's off straight to the bridge to learn about the crisis of the rebellious planet below. We're going to be hearing evidence today, and his expertise may be vital in getting to the bottom of these accusations. Given the timing, it's probable that this is all part of the Romulan plan. Hopefully, Troy can be useful for once and detect that something is amiss.
You had a good time.
Okay, well, that is just first blush.
Geordie, I get the feeling that something special happened on this vacation, and I'm not talking about computers.
Nope, it's exactly what I expect from Troy. Guy gets brainwashed, and she comes back, I bet you got laid. During this, Data tells Riker about an E-band fluctuation, and given the rarity, they better get to the bottom of that. It could be some kind of nefarious activity. Or it might be a benign scientific opportunity, and we should go be nerds at it for a while. Down on the planet, the governor's already ranting about the uprising and the impotent response to it. And bringing in the Federation? When the Federation is so obviously behind it? Well, it's just a sign of how useless the High Council is going to be. Riker notes that the medical supplies the governor presents as evidence doesn't prove anything. I mean, they're hardly restricted. Anybody could have gotten hold of them and wound up in the hands of these rebels eventually. But that's not all he's got.
Then explain this.
I wish I could, but I can't. I mean, this thing just looks stupid. I mean, half the reason we're pacifists is no one wants to go to war carrying one of these things. The governor points out that the loss of this colony is in the Federation's interest because it weakens the Klingon forces along their border. You know, kind of like the way the independence of Quebec would protect the United States from an attack by Canada. Yet I don't think the CIA is pulling any strings there. Picard stands up to the governor's insults, since that's what a Klingon would respect, but he wants to examine the weapon to find out if it's genuine. Not one of those, props that you can get made by third parties on Etsy. Meanwhile, Geordi deliberately spills a drink on Chief O'Brien and 10 Forward, and the ominous music plays as we go to commercial. I guess shooting O'Brien was a test to see if they could get Geordi to go so far as to inconvenience him. I mean, murder is one thing, but being rude is much harder. And so far, it doesn't look like it's even in the service of any larger plan, because after the break, Geordi's working on the phaser rifle with Data, which was obviously what it was going to be whether or not O'Brien had a dirty shirt. So I guess we just have to wonder at Romulan machinations. They look it over and note that some things don't add up, including the way that it was powered up isn't consistent with Federation power. They've got those goofy Apple lighting cables when everybody else has the standard ones. Typical. One thing's for sure, with Geordi working for them, the last thing he'll do is suggest that those responsible are the Romulans.
The Romulans.
You are the worst Manchurian candidate ever. After doing that, Geordi then sneaks off to the cargo bay and begins playing around with their little chips while giving orders. Although with the way this is going, who knows what it's supposed to actually accomplish. It probably cause an inverse tachyon beam that'll shrink Picard's tidy whiteys to half their size. When he's done with his fiddling, he actually beams down a crate and has all record of that erased. But moments later, the governor calls up, extremely miffed.
Governor.
You astonish me, Picard. Did you seriously believe you would succeed? Do you think we are blind?
No, just embarrassingly stupid. Klingon ships quickly show up to let the Enterprise know that it better not leave. And what's worse is Data saying, oh yeah, we are totally guilty. An unauthorized use of the transporter is noted, but who did it and how they did it is so cryptic it's a complete unknown. The ambassador swings by to say that the governor is only waiting to blow them away until after the High Council says that it's okay. But that's not going to take very long. I mean, being caught red-handed in an act of clandestine betrayal has pretty much hits all the Klingons' buttons. Geordi and Data look into it and find out that while the one responsible really covered their tracks well, they can trace it back to the cargo bay eventually. But the records are so well covered that only about 4 people could have done it, and everybody but Geordi has an alibi. But of course, Geordi seems so damn sincere, it's hard to imagine that he could have done it and just stood there so brazenly saying, "This is a dilly of a pickle." It really shows the difference between Voyager and the Enterprise, though. Voyager constantly monitors the brainwave patterns of the entire crew, while the Enterprise doesn't even keep a record of where your comm badge is, because Geordi is wearing it while he's doing his secret mission. There's got to be some happy medium in there between peering into your mind and the honor system. That's all I'm saying. Well, we start to see how some of the pieces come together, although how the juice thing fits in is still beyond me. It turns out that the ambassador is the one pulling Geordi's strings. He suggests Picard invite the governor up to see how the investigation is going, and during the investigation is when Geordi is going to murder the governor. I mean, obviously he doesn't tell Picard that part. Don't want to give away any spoilers after all. Geordi isn't dealing so well with being a secret assassin, even waking from a nightmare worried about O'Brien enough to check on him, and then to see Dr. Crusher to see if there's some reason that he can't sleep. But all she's got for him is, well, these things happen sometimes, Geordi. Though, how much can you trust her medical expertise? I mean, unlike Troy, she didn't even ask if he got laid. Meanwhile, the E-band mystery has been cropping up, and now another transmission, burst, whatever, has definitely appeared, originating on the ship itself. Riker tells Data to dig into it before the war starts and the Klingons shave off all their hair again. The only thing the signal is remotely like is human neural patterns. So Data figures that he should take a look at Geordi's shuttle to see if there's any evidence that something happened during his little trip to Risa. Well, the shuttle's clean as a whistle. The only thing Data can find that even hints something is wrong are microscopic deformations that may be caused by a tractor beam. But that is enough of a clue to force Data to go deeper. He starts to examine the chips themselves in the shuttle, and figures out that, like the phaser rifle, these were definitely made by Romulans. I mean, it's a very good forgery, but there are a few clues in there. There's a microscopic flaw inconsistent with Federation replicators. The energy pattern doesn't conform to Federation power generation. Oh, and also, there's a label on there saying made with pride on Romulus, so that clinched it. During this, Geordi has armed himself and headed to the cargo bay, and it's only O'Brien stopping to ask him about something that delays the assassination. But only for so long, and when Geordi won't answer Data, he concludes that something is up with him and tells Worf. Well, now that would be fine if not for the fact that Worf is a dishonored Klingon, so the other Klingons don't trust him, see? So when he tries to take action when he's near the governor's guards stop him. So it's down to Picard at the last instant to intervene before the governor gets shot.
Arming our enemies is not enough. Now the Federation would murder me to achieve its aims.
Some days it is really hard being Captain Picard. Look, Governor, I know this looks bad, but I'm sure there's a perfectly rational explanation. Someone, I'm sure, has a perfectly rational explanation, yes? Well, how about an irrational explanation? I'm open to one of those. What about goblins? I'm willing to open up the floor to goblins. Well, luckily, as Geordi is hauled off by Worf, Data arrives to bail Picard out by explaining the plot, and that the only people close enough to use the E-bands in order to control Geordi are Picard and the ambassador. So all we've got to do is search both of them, and we'll find out the truth. Well, the ambassador refuses to be searched by any Starfleet flunkies, and the governor agrees. He's going to do a cavity search on that guy that makes a colonoscopy look like a half glance while reading a magazine. Things are resolved, but the episode spends a couple of minutes showing Geordi having to cope with the intellectual knowledge that he was brainwashed against the feeling that everything was just fine. A sign that this is a long and difficult journey back for him. And we'll just assume that it worked out, I guess. The post-episode follow-up. Annoying character goes to the governor for the getting right up into the camera moment, as if Picard wouldn't have known otherwise that he was mad. Have it zoom in on my face. The damn zoom isn't working. Well, I'll stand right up by the screen there. And crap, the switch is on my desk for it. Okay, all right, I'll switch it on, and then I'll try to run over to the screen before he picks it up. Final score for The Mind's Eye is 6 out of 10. It's a bit too distracted by the technical details, but otherwise is a pretty solid TV outing, an above-average example of TNG. Burton brings some nice subtlety to his performance, and I appreciate the chance to give him some downtime to see what he does when he's bored. Geordi doesn't get a whole lot of attention besides his job, so it's nice to get little scenes like that. The episode also showed that, while these are standalone, that there is still an advancing plot line. With this one both tying into the clash between Worf and Duras from the past, and the foreshadowing of the influence that the Romulans have within certain corners of the Klingon Empire in the upcoming season finale. So it's not only a perfectly serviceable episode in its own right, but helps to knit things together in anticipation of a major event. Nicely done.